And so we are part of a broad national movement, the immigrant rights movement, that has big visions for the next presidency. But we bring a unique perspective from here in Tennessee. As you know, we're a new destination state, right? We're not California, we're not Texas, but immigrant families are increasingly choosing right here. And so we think that the future of immigration is happening in communities like ours. So we have an incredibly powerful group of people to share with you today. We have a very packed agenda, so Lisa Sherman-Nicholas, our policy director, and myself will try to move us through both substantive policy issues as well as personal stories. And so the first half, we're going to focus a bit on immigration enforcement, and the second half a bit more about refugee resettlement. But before we get started, I want to introduce Ahmed, who's one of the owners of the Horn.
Thank you for hosting us. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, very grateful.
So my name is Ahmed Saeed, and I am the co-owner of the Horn Coffee. I co-own with my brother, and my father, the rest of the family works here. We are a product of the immigration resettlement program when we came to Nashville in 1986. So without opportunities like that, we'd not be able to do businesses like this or make our mark on the American society.
Success story, right?
Right
This,
here.
this is immigration working, making the country better.
Yes, sir.
Your very presence, creating jobs.
Yes, sir.
I haven't had a chance to taste the coffee, but making great coffee for people here,
Most definitely.
and then adding to the vibrancy of the community.
Most definitely. Now we're trying to bring our culture to the American society as well. We're going to give the American people a taste of what we have to offer. I'm sure we want some more immigrants in the United States.
Well, thank you. Thanks for hosting us.
Most definitely.
Thanks for sharing your
Thank you so
story.
much, Beto.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah.
So before we get started, we wanted to give you the opportunity to just share for a couple minutes just your
Sure.
general ideas about immigration.
Yeah, so Stephanie, first of all, thank you for facilitating this and helping us to organize and bring everybody together, to Ahmed and to the Horn for hosting us and providing us with food and refreshment, and also just a great example of America at our best. I come from El Paso, Texas, which is a city on the border with Mexico, and with Ciudad Juarez, our sister city, we form the largest binational community in the Western Hemisphere. So there are 3 million of us, primarily speaking 2 languages, from 2 cultures, 2 histories, who join to form one people. And the fact that a quarter of those with whom I live in El Paso were born in another country, chose us, have contributed to our success, to our strength, and also our security. We're one of the safest cities in the United States of America, is a story that I'm so proud to share, and I want the rest of the country to understand that immigration is not a problem, it's not a threat, it's not something we have to defend ourselves against. It is the single greatest opportunity that we have as a country. It is what has made us one of the greatest countries in the history of the world, and certainly today on the face of the planet. And so embracing that, making sure that we make the most of those who are willing to leave their home country, their language, their culture, their family, to come here and start anew, very often as strangers in a strange land, because they want to do better for themselves, but they also want to do better for all of us. That, I think, is the best opportunity that this country has today. And so our immigration proposal says the following: we will never again put another child in another cage, or build 2,000 miles of wall that will cost us $30 billion. We'll never again separate families, torture those who are at their most vulnerable and desperate point that we could possibly imagine in our lives. We will spare no expense in reuniting every single family who has been separated, freeing every child and every family who's in detention. No one will be criminally prosecuted for doing what any human would do in the same set of circumstances, fleeing crushing poverty and incredibly deadly violence and brutality in countries all over the world, but we certainly see them in the Western Hemisphere, in Honduras and Guatemala and El Salvador. Dreamers made U.S. citizens without delay, so that they never again live in fear of deportation back to a country that they functionally do not know, whose language they may not speak, where they may no longer have family. 9 million green card holders, so legal permanent residents, make them U.S. citizens as quickly as possible, waive any citizenship application fees, send them already filled citizenship application forms because we have all the information necessary for that when they applied for green card status, allow them to make any corrections or additions, and then get that in and make them U.S. citizens to contribute to their full potential. And then we're going to prioritize family reunification in our immigration system. Our current president wants to diminish that, wants to follow something that some refer to as a merit-based program. We believe that family unification is one of the best ways to strengthen this country. We also know that we need to raise the visa caps so that those who are trying to join families are not in lines that stretch 20, 25 years long, to be able to do the right thing and to follow our laws. Lastly, I want to make sure, and you said this, Stephanie, that as president, we don't just propose the right policies or pass the right legislation, but that we speak with pride about everyone who comprises this country from every part of the world. And in the face of an administration that sought to ban all Muslim travel to the United States, or called Mexican immigrants rapists and criminals, or described asylum seekers as animals or an infestation, we know that that has led to policies and practices that have dehumanized people. We mentioned last night that the burning of the mosque in Victoria, Texas, on the day that President Trump's Muslim ban was enacted. We know that you don't get kids in cages or 7 deaths of children in U.S. Border Patrol custody until you've given permission to treat them as something less than human. So celebrating our common humanity, seeing ourselves in one another, I think that's a wonderful opportunity for the next president, and we certainly want to lead on that basis in our administration. Lastly, I'm here because I want to hear your stories, and then I want to share those stories. I think that's how we bring our fellow Americans into this conversation. Estoy aquí para escuchar y compartir sus historias, para reflejar los intereses, los valores de los Estados Unidos y invitar a gente a participar en este proceso y la política que queremos implementar en los Estados Unidos. Very grateful for the chance to do this, and looking forward to hearing what everybody has to say.
Well, thanks so much. So everybody is really excited to share with you, and again, we'll sort of facilitate, and after a few people speak, then we'll allow you to respond so we can, all of us talk before you can ask questions or share your thoughts. But we want to start with Martha and Alberto, who traveled the farthest to join us today. And so, like everywhere in the country, immigrants here in Tennessee are a vital part of our economy and our communities. And so about 4 hours away from here is a community called Morristown, where both Martha and Alberto live. It's a rural community, but it's already more than 1 in 10 folks who live there are Latinx. So the immigrant community is deeply rooted there. But last April, ICE chose this small town to conduct its first massive worksite raid in nearly 10 years. So that morning in April, just like any other day, dozens and dozens of federal agents stormed into a meat processing plant with weapons drawn, helicopters circling above the factory, blocked the exits, and detained almost 100 workers. They were filed onto buses, including Alberto and Marta. They would be shipped off, dozens were shipped away to faraway detention centers without the opportunity to say goodbye to their kids. So I was there on the day of the raid, and when something like this happens in an American community, it feels like a bomb has gone off. In many ways, it felt like we were responding to a natural disaster. The next day, 600 children missed school in this small town. And so since then, the Trump administration has scaled up enforcement, conducted raids and audits in Nebraska, Ohio, Minnesota, North Carolina, and as you know, just 2 days after the anniversary of the Bean Station raid, they arrested 280 workers in Allen, Texas. So this issue of worksite enforcement is very important to us and for the next administration. So I wanted to invite first Marta and then Alberto to share a little bit about their experience.
Gracias, Stephanie. Hola, mi nombre es Marta Pulido. Yo vengo de Morristown, de aquí del estado de Tennessee. He vivido aquí durante 20 años. Ha sido mi hogar. Aquí mis hijos crecieron. Ahora he tenido la oportunidad de tener nietos con mi relación. agradezco infinitamente la oportunidad de poder platicar mi experiencia. El 5 de abril del año pasado yo fui parte de una velada que hubo en la ciudad de Nashville, en la cual casi 100 trabajadores fueron arrestados justamente porque lo único que estaban perdiendo era trabajo.
¿En cuál tipo de trabajo?
Una planta procesadora de carne.
Ok.
Yo trabajé casi 2 años ahí, en diferentes áreas de la planta. Esa mañana, como todas las mañanas, normalmente, de repente, temprano, se escucharon los oficiales diciendo, pongan sus manos arriba. Te comprenderá que eso fue caos en la planta, todo el mundo, miedo a lo no conocido. Hubo el caos total. Compañeras en tratar de reaccionar cayeron al suelo, los oficiales que apuntaban con las pistolas. Vi a un oficial que le dio un golpe a un compañero, así nada más.
¿Por qué?
Sí, porque él trató de apagar una máquina y pensó que iba a hacer algo, y lo golpeó en la cara. Era terrible afuera, porque no veíamos nada, helicópteros, se veía tremendo eso, completamente el caos. Lo que yo no entiendo ni entenderé, por qué el uso excesivo de armas.
Sí.
La agresividad con la que nos apresaron, porque esa es la palabra. Ya que nos pusieron esposas, nos sacaron a todos de la planta, pero no nos permitieron hacer una llamada, no nos permitieron nada. O sea, los trabajadores americanos también los sacaron, pero a ellos no les pusieron esposas. Yo vi que ellos estaban tranquilos fumando, cuando nosotros no nos dejaban ni hablar. Nada, entre compañeros, nada.
No pudiera hablar con sus
nada,
hijos, sus
nada,
nietos,
no nos dejaron
nada.
nada. No permitieron una llamada, no. Tremendo, eso fue algo tremendo. Nos llevaron al Armory.
Sí.
Ahí nos llevaron a todos. Yo afortunadamente me libraron después de 14 horas de estar detenida ahí. Hicieron el proceso de huellas, de todo lo que es inmigración. De verdad no entiendo por qué nos pasó esto, porque pues, nosotros solamente estábamos trabajando. O sea, lo único que queremos es tener el sustento para la familia. No somos criminales. Sin embargo, nos trataron por eso. En este país se dice que si trabajas y le echas ganas, prosperas, pero a veces no te deja. Es completamente injusta la forma en que nos ocurrieron. A partir de la redada he pasado momentos muy difíciles. La vida de todos, de las 97 familias se cambió. Porque vivimos con la angustia y la incertidumbre. ¿Qué va a pasar?
Sí.
Pero, y hoy quiero asegurarme de que esto pare, de que usted pueda hacer algo que nos ayude,
Sí.
porque es una injusticia.
Sí.
No somos delincuentes, solo queremos el bienestar de la familia. Hemos tratado de trabajar duro,
Sí.
de ser honestos.
Sí.
Durante mis 20 años no he cometido ni un crimen,
Sí.
mas sin embargo
gracias por compartir su historia y obvio que está contribuyendo mucho a la economía, a la calidad de vida de su comunidad, de este estado, de nuestro país, que no cometió un crimen, que no es justo que hicieron a usted, a su familia, a las otras familias, sí, a todas, y no va a asegurar este país. Yo pienso que va a bajar el nivel de seguridad que tenemos porque gente no van a reportar a crimen a las autoridades porque no van a tener relaciones con las autoridades. Yo quiero que arreglamos o escribimos a nuevo nuestras leyes de migración para que usted pueda sin miedo trabajar, contribuir, criar sus nietos o sus hijos aquí en esta comunidad, y que podemos dar las gracias a usted por trabajar en uno de los trabajos más duros.
Pesados.
Sí, sí. Y hay alguien que ha nacido aquí que quiere hacer ese trabajo. No
lo hace.
No. Y dependemos a usted. Y yo quiero dar las gracias y yo quiero reflejar sus contribuciones en las leyes que queremos escribir y pasar para que podamos aceptar el trabajo, pero también la calidad de vida que puede ofrecer a su familia, pero también a todas nuestras familias y la comunidad. Y con nuestro plan queremos hacer eso, quitar el miedo, parar esta injusticia que describiste ahora. Gracias por compartirlo. Sí. Gracias.
So I'm going to play the not-pleasant role of trying to keep us moving quickly. So I'm going to encourage, so we could have a full roundtable on the Morristown raid, and perhaps we should. We'd be welcome you
Yes.
to Morristown
All
when
right,
you come
let's
back
do
to
it.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
So I'm going to invite Alberto to share a couple minutes of his experience, and then we'll hear from both.
Hola, como dijo, yo soy Alberto. Yo llevo 14 años en Estados Unidos también. Yo tengo 3 hijos ciudadanos americanos nacidos aquí. Nosotros también fuimos afectados. El año pasado fuimos detenidos por ICE, agentes federales, agentes de la fuerza, ahora sí que del Army. Ahí llegaron a la empresa donde trabajamos, en la empacadora de carne, y pues la historia de nosotros es que pues las familias siguen sufriendo, o sea, es la actualidad, nos estamos reponiendo o estamos tratando de sobrellevarnos. Ese día cuando nosotros estábamos trabajando en la compañía, yo fui una de las primeras personas que vio cuando llegaron las patrullas. Llegaron 2 patrullas State Troopers, subieron, yo pensé que algún accidente, porque pues es un lugar donde se matan los animales, se procesa la carne. Yo pensé es un accidente o algo. Pasaron las patrullas y ya cuando veo vienen más, llegaron muchos, State Patrol, ICE, IRS dicen otros, vans grandes, y de ahí llegan los helicópteros, todo en, yo creo, 1 minuto se llenó todo, lleno, todos lados, tú no puede salir nadie, todos armados, algo que no hay necesidad de hacer. Yo creo no necesitas muchas armas para detenerlos. Cualquier persona que ICE detenga, sabemos que nos van a agarrar, no podemos irnos. No necesitas arma para detenernos.
No es una fábrica de ISIS o Al-Qaeda.
Yeah.
No,
Es un
no
lugar de
son
trabajo.
terroristas, son trabajadores.
Es un lugar donde nosotros nos ganamos la vida para mantener a la familia. un lugar donde se convierte en una zona de guerra porque es todos armados, todos apuntando, es algo muy difícil. Fuimos detenidos todos sin importar tu estatus. Habían personas que somos hispanos, que tenemos cómo comprobar, no hubo un trato justo para nadie. Simplemente por ser, tienes tu pasión de hispano o de latino,
Sí.
todos
Sí.
con las esposas, todos para acá, un señor que se vea que es americano, todos para acá, ellos caminando, no hay ningún problema.
Dicen en inglés racial profiling.
No hay-
Parece como
tienes-
hispano.
Sí, todos
es-
para
es
acá.
criminal.
Hubo personas que hablaban, puedes hacer cosas, no puedes hacer nada, todo está separado. Cuando nosotros fuimos detenidos, nos mandaron al army y ahí el traslado que nos hicieron para llegar a los centros de detención, pues la comunicación con la familia no existe. Nosotros nos trasladaron a diferentes centros de detención. Fuimos un grupo de personas, se bajaron en una parte, otro grupo en otra parte. Nos fueron dejando en diferentes partes, en departamentos de policía, en profesionales. Fue difícil para comunicarnos porque un centro, una correccional o un departamento de policía no nos permite una llamada. Yo duré una semana para comunicarme con mi familia.
Tiene 3 hijos. ¿Cuáles son sus edades?
12, 6 y 4.
Oh, wow.
Ellos
No sabía
preguntan dónde está papá. Una semana no está su papá.
Wow.
Cuando yo hablé, a mí me dieron 1 minuto y medio para comunicarme con mi familia. Son 90 segundos. Yo no puedo hablar mucho con ellos. Aquí, pues, el impacto no ha sido nada más en mi familia, ha sido en toda la comunidad. Como dijeron ya, las escuelas, siguiente día, pues, nos dieron permiso. Fue algo que nos afectó mucho a toda la comunidad. Y gracias por escucharnos.
Gracias
Esperemos
a
que en el
usted.
futuro usted nos
Sí.
pueda ayudar en acomodar esas cosas.
Por último, y muy brevemente, una pregunta. ¿Sus hijos ya tienen ciudadanía?
Ellos nacieron aquí.
Aquí, okay. Wow. Father to 3 U.S. citizen children, held for a week, unable to really communicate. Gracias por compartir.
Gracias a usted por
Sí.
escucharnos. El daño se lo están haciendo a sus propios ciudadanos,
Sí,
no nada más a nosotros.
sí, a este país. Sí.
Thank you, Beto. And so just to underscore some of the policy changes that we've been thinking about is, so one, certainly an end to these kind of militarized worksite raids that just devastate local communities
Right.
and cause serious, long-lasting trauma to the families. Alberto was held for many, many weeks in a private for-profit detention center, so we're glad to see that you called for an end to those. There were certain companies that were profiting off the suffering of their families. We also think the next president really must recast a new narrative about the role of immigrants in our economy. Obviously, Trump's been conducting these worksite raids, alleging that it's to the benefit of U.S. workers. And so we need to recognize that not only do immigrants play a vital role in our workforce, but when we allow these kinds of raids that terrorize communities, it only drives workers further underground, more vulnerable to exploitation, which is bad for all of their coworkers. And so lastly, and Jose will speak to this a little bit more, is we really think there needs to be greater federal protections for undocumented workers. So this particular meat processing plant has since been fined and is facing litigation for unpaid wages for incredibly dangerous health and safety violations. But when the threat of deportation hangs above workers' heads, they're less likely to report these conditions. And so we need more federal protections to ensure that all workers, regardless of their status, feel comfortable reporting those violations.
Without consequence of having their immigration status used against them.
Exactly.
Yep.
So the Power Act's been introduced many, many years that would essentially take immigration status off the table by providing people protection from deportation for the duration of the labor dispute. And it's not just in the case of these huge raids, it's an everyday experience for workers here in Tennessee. And so Dulce is going to share a little bit about the experience of her family.
Hello.
Thank you, Joseph.
I'm Dulce Castro, and I am originally from Mexico. I was 6 years old when my family and I moved to the United States. I come from a mixed status family, which means that my older brother and I are DACA recipients, and my younger sister is a U.S. citizen. My parents are both undocumented. I have lived in Nashville, Tennessee for most of my life. I started elementary school here, and I have graduated from high school here. And I am currently a first-generation college student. While the United States has given me many opportunities, I currently live in fear and anxiety because I am afraid to one day get separated from my parents. My father is an independent construction worker, and his only agreements are verbally because he is afraid of getting caught for. I'm sorry, I can say.
Take your time. You're doing great.
But basically, all of his agreements are verbally, so he doesn't sign any with all his contractors. Many times, their contractors know that he is undocumented, so and they know that he is afraid to report to the police if they take advantage of him. So many times, the contractors have taken advantage of him and his coworkers and my brother's work. My dad's workers. And that has caused for my dad to sometimes not get paid, and because of that, his workers are not paid either. Since he is the boss of his workers, he has to take money from our family savings to pay to his workers. There are many times that economic difficult moments when we did not have money for food, where we did not have money to pay for the bills, even for my education at school. So even to this day, it has been very difficult to give my dad the encouragement to tell the police and report to the police when things like this happen because he is so big. I hope to one day in the future try to help, with those policies and have encouragement to try to, make a change, just like how you were trying to make a change. Thank you so much for your time, and I just hope that you really listen to us and actually, make a change.
Yeah, Dulce, thank you for having the courage to share that story. And Stephanie mentioned a policy that I agree with, which is that someone's immigration status should not be, and by law, we should prevent it from being used against them when they're reporting wage theft or corrupt business practices, or when someone's immigration status is used against them to deny them what they are legally and contractually, even if it was a verbal agreement, owed. But using your dad's personal story and what that has meant to your family as he has to use his savings, your savings, to pay workers who are also depending on him, who are also affected by that. And also the other side of that, which is that your dad is creating jobs and opportunities and success in his community, and that is something that should be celebrated. If he were here as a legal permanent resident, because we legalized his status, if he could pursue citizenship, I can only imagine how much more he would be able to contribute to our shared success. And there's something you said that resonates with something you heard earlier. We were at Second Harvest Food Bank earlier today, and they were talking about how these ICE raids and the fear now in immigrant communities, including mixed status families, has prevented people from coming to a food bank to get the calories that they need, that are there for free if they can get there, but they're willing to deny themselves the food that they need to subsist on for fear that they will be arrested, detained, deported back to a country they haven't been to in 20 or 14 years, or perhaps longer in your father's case, and jeopardize their family. So I really appreciate you using that personal story to remind us of what's at stake, and then also I hope to compel us to do the right thing, because even just hearing your story and what you ended on, which is that you want to contribute and you're pursuing this education, I want you to be able to do that here. We are all going to be the beneficiary of that. So thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thanks, Dulce.
So we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about immigration enforcement in the interior that's different from the kind of mass raid we just discussed.
Yeah.
And we've really seen this escalated here in Tennessee by willing participants at the state and the local level. since Trump became president, 2 of our counties have signed up for 287G programs, which deputizes local law enforcement as ICE agents. And as you probably know, that program was on its way out under the Obama administration, but is now increasing under the Trump administration. And last year, our state legislature passed an anti-sanctuary city law that facilitates and encourages local law enforcement to facilitate the work of ICE. And as we've already discussed here, and you've heard from the stories, this kind of curriculum really serves to erode trust and results in loss of lasting trauma that takes decades to restore and to address. So one of the reasons for this is in large part the federal government's failure to universalize protections and to universalize opportunities. So here in Tennessee, we're very different from California or New York, where while they may have to live with the fear of deportation, they also have in-state tuition and health care and driver's licenses, and cities that have decided to draw a bright line between their work and the work of the federal government. So I'm going to pass it over now to Veronica, who's going to share a little bit more about her experience living in Tennessee for the past 18 years. And then after that, Jasmine and Stephanie will speak, and then after that, we'll give you some time to address some of the points in this section.
Thanks. Thank you, Veronica.
Hola. How I say before, my name is Veronica. I am originally from Mexico. I migrated to the United States 18 years ago, fleeing a domestic violence. I am a mother of 3 DACA recipients. One of them already graduated college. One is a sophomore, one is a junior, freshman.
Congratulations.
To be an undocumented immigrant under the Trump administration is hard. It's been really hard. But living in Tennessee, that's a completely different story. In other states, they have the same fears. Fears of deportation, threat for being separated from their families, but they do have health care, they do have driver license, they do have in-state tuition, which means a lot for the community. In my case, I pay as an international for my kids. My kids are international students because Tennessee doesn't have in-state tuition. Here in Tennessee, we have the HB 2315. This law criminalizes our communities. And we have 2 counties with 287G, Knox County and Greene County. 287G was here in Nashville and was the factor of separation of more than 10,000 of our families. So it's something that when you hear that number and we hear the other counties are getting it, it's like really dangerous for our community. It's affecting. So in the times of 287G, I still remember when my kids come back home, elementary school kids, they come back home and say like, guess what? The father of my friend been removed from the city. So that affects our communities. That affects our lives here. I've been living here for 18 years. I'm a house owner. I'm a business owner. And my kids, my older kid already graduated college. And my other 2 kids are pursuing a higher education. No one in my family before did that. So, as the next president of United States, how do you will end 287G, and more important, end the collaboration between local agency and the federal agency? Because I think that's a fact they only need to be handled by the federal government. It shouldn't be something that the states locally being separated our families.
I understand that you want me to answer these questions after everyone's had a chance.
Maybe just for time's sake, yes.
Yeah,
We want to
okay.
make sure everybody
Yes.
gets to share
And
their
so I'll make sure
story.
that I address that one. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Jasmine, and I'm a DACA recipient, and I have been living in the U.S. for 17 years. Growing up in Tennessee as an undocumented young person, I faced many obstacles that many of my friends in other states did not. I had no access to with DACA, I was able to obtain a driver's license, get a job with local government, and work with after-school programs, helping more students in our school systems. And then it also allowed me to pay my way through college and obtain my bachelor's degree in social justice. But like Luis was mentioned earlier, DACA comes with anxiety, a lot of fears, and moments of panic, especially under this administration, with the constant attacks that the administration has placed on DACA. And this is why we need a permanent solution for undocumented young people. And I was at your rally last night, and I was able to hear you speak a lot on dreamers and legalizing dreamers, which is great. But I would like to hear you talk a little bit more about how you will protect DACA recipients, TPS holders, and the broader undocumented youth, including those who have had some contact with the criminal justice system, because under the current Dream and Promise Act, there is a provision that would exclude those who have had contact with the criminal justice system. Specifically, how will you protect us without using us as bargaining chips for more enforcement and putting other immigrants at risk?
The very last sort of policy point we wanted to make on immigration enforcement before we switch gears to talk about the Muslim ban and refugee resettlement is about our sort of position on the repeal of 1325 and 1326.
Yeah.
We know this has been discussed frequently in the Democratic primary, but we wanted to share a little bit about its impact here and sort of how we look at the need for a repeal. So first, it's our view that it's just bad policy by any measure, right? When you cross the border, you're then subject to two different legal systems, both the civil process, which would facilitate deportation, and a criminal process. And so repealing the sections would only eliminate the criminal penalties and transfer immigration back solely in the civil authorities, having one legal system instead of two, which, like Veronica had talked about, from top to bottom, we believe immigration should be handled in the civil immigration and not tied up with our criminal justice system. But since it's been enforced long before it was weaponized by the Trump administration to separate families, it's been fueling mass incarceration. The majority of federal prosecutions are now based on 1325 and 1326. Hundreds of millions of dollars, diverting law enforcement resources without any indication that it actually deters any immigration. And so as a country, we're making progress towards chipping away at mass incarceration, but it's our view that we can't make progress on that without repealing those provisions. In the case of Morristown, so some people were released after 14 hours, like Marta, and allowed to go through the civil immigration proceedings. Alberto was detained for several weeks in a detention center, but 10 of their colleagues were actually detained for many months under Section 1326 at taxpayer expense before being transferred to their eventual deportation through the civil immigration process. But more importantly, or not more importantly, also importantly, is the narrative cost. From the very beginning when people migrate here, we're sort of rooting migration in a frame of crime and punishment. And so we've seen this deep narrative that undocumented immigrants being criminals has fueled a lot of the state laws that Jasmine and Veronica talked about, like efforts to allow judges to consider someone's immigration status when giving them a sentence or deny them bond. And so for us, we know that immigration is a public safety threat and it's an inevitable process, and that our country should figure out how to manage the migration flows through a civil process and not bring in the sort of criminalization of people. We think it's critical to have a new vision and are going to continue to come, and it's not a crime, but it's something that we can manage. So if you did want to respond to any of this before, but I want to make sure we definitely hear from Leila and Vinyad and Sabina about the refugee business as well.
Great.
Oh, well, if we want to keep moving that
We
on.
can move forward with refugee resettlement. So now, I know you're very familiar with asylum coming from a border state, and obviously we want to expand and broaden the definitions of asylum. As you heard from Veronica's story, it's really important to make sure that we're maximizing protections for people who are coming here fleeing violence. But also, this is the first time in a long time that the U.S. hasn't been leading the world in welcoming people fleeing persecution and violence. The Trump administration has reduced the refugee resettlement program by 75% in a time of greatest so this has led to the closure of World Relief Nashville, which is one of the refugee resettlement agencies that had 30 years experience in welcoming refugees. Catholic Charities had to reduce their staff by a third. And so this is obviously not just bad for the loss of jobs, which a lot of refugees held these jobs, but also the erosion of the infrastructure, the capacity, the institutional knowledge to resettle refugees. And so we're going to need a great commitment, but also resources to invest back into our refugee resettlement structure. In addition to raising the cap and making sure that we're welcoming as many as we can. So I want to pass it over to Layla to share a little bit about her story as a refugee here in Tennessee.
My name is Layla Adam. I came to the United States in 2000 as a refugee from Kenya, and I left with my family when we arrived in America. Almost 17. And after we arrived in New Orleans, they welcomed us, and they have our names in the back. They took us home, food, clothes, without where you can see. And my experience from living in refugee camp, coming to the United States is like a big difference. It's a better life, and seeing different. In refugee, you don't have healthy, you don't have a type of food or water or anything, no education, no school. So we're struggling a lot of things, not a lot of things. Sometimes we sleep dark, scary. So I'm glad I'm here. American appreciating welcoming all refugee and opportunity, and like in the Somali community have a business opening, and their kids growing up, go to school, live their life. So what I feel like if I see in the refugee camp, I have some families still in this type of refugee camp, and every day they say, when we gonna come? And I wish, I know and how they feel when I was up there, and the way I was struggling in refugee camp. So I wish in Trump administration or whatever ban all the refugee country, different Muslim too, all the country, not only Somalia, Iraq, everything, even every immigration, I hope they welcome to the country. Give the opportunity America have a good country. Thank you very much for coming to me.
Layla, thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
And so as Layla mentioned, as you know, there's been several versions of the Muslim ban, and the most recent version does block immigrants from Somalia, and so there's been really an inability to welcome family members and others who are from Somalia. But actually we have today one of the Benyad, who was one of the first to be turned around by the Muslim ban in 2017. So he's going to share about his experience during that time.
My name is Benyad. I've been living in the US for 2.5 years now. On January 27th, 2017, we were on the airplane with my parents and two sisters coming into the US on our very first journey from Iraq.
Okay.
So we were fleeing from targeted violence because of my father's work with the US government in Iraq. And on that day, we were on our way in the airplane when the Muslim ban was signed. So unfortunately, the ban was immediately went into effect, and there was no way we were gonna enter the United States, and we were treated as fugitives and sent back to Iraq, and betrayed of all the service my dad and the risk that he took to his family and the work that he's done. Fortunately, after really hard work by organizers, by protesters going to the streets, we were able to make it back to the United States, which was a miracle for us after being through so much.
Did you literally land in the United States?
So we were in our layover in Cairo.
Okay.
In between. So in
And
Cairo,
you were prevented from continuing.
yes, in Cairo they called the officials. They said, these people, we know they're on their way, don't let them in. And yeah, it was when we made it back, that was a huge relief for us, for my family. And right now, it's been a year since the Supreme Court has upheld this same travel ban, and families are currently being separated because of that travel ban. Even though that we are very grateful that we're here, my family's here, we know friends, family, my dad's coworkers who have fallen in the crack, and people in the Muslim majority countries who can't make it here because of this travel ban, and we think about that every day. there's clearly a big effort by the current administration to change who's coming to this country, and Muslim majority countries are being targeted. We're here at a Somali-owned coffee shop who were owners former refugees, and right now Somali people are illegal to enter this country. They cannot do that. As the next president should immediately repeal that ban and help reunite the people who have been separated because of this ban and support the families who have been affected by this ban, this Muslim ban.
Thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it. Agree with you.
So yes, we need an immediate overturning of the ban, but especially here in Tennessee, we know that the ban didn't come out of nowhere, and neither did Trump. But the sort of expansion of Islamophobia and white supremacy have long found fertile ground here in Tennessee. So we've seen anti-refugee and anti-Muslim legislation for many, many, many years, and we suspect that it will also outlast the Trump administration. So to talk about that issue more broadly, I'd like to introduce Sabina.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to us. My name is Sabina Moidin, and I'm the program manager for the American Muslim Advisory Council. And we try to empower the Muslim community through civic engagement, community building, and education. And we were formed after a 2011 anti-Sharia bill was introduced in the Tennessee State Legislature. And unfortunately, that wasn't the first Islamophobic attack on our community. In 2008, we had a mosque in Columbia, Tennessee that was burned to the ground. And then since 2010, if you've heard of the Islamic Center of Murfreesboro, they've endured a lot of hate through lawsuits and vandalism and protests. And even as recently as like 8 months ago, one of our mosques had a threat against it by somebody who said they were going to shoot up the people in the mosque. And this person had access to guns. And so one thing you have to understand is when we talk about Islamophobia, xenophobia, or racism, these are all rooted in white supremacy. And a perfect example of that is in October 2017, there was 2 White Lives Matter rallies in Tennessee, one in Murfreesboro and one in Shelbyville. And the reason why they picked those cities is because there were visibly Muslim population and refugee populations in those cities. So you can see how it all ties together. So we know that Congresswoman Ilhan Omar has been getting a lot of attacks because she's a black Muslim woman and a refugee. Well, in Nashville, we have Zulfa Suera, who is running for city council. She's a close friend of mine. But she's being attacked by Islamophobes and white supremacists because, again, she's a black Muslim woman and an immigrant. And so this affects our community. It's been affecting her and mentally, physically. She fears for her family. I mean, we're tired of being attacked in this way. And so, you know, the policies we're talking about that attack our communities, whether it's the Muslim ban, or it's family separation, or ICE raids. All these policies didn't just start with Trump, and if we reverse these policies, it's not going to end the problem. And so when we talk about white supremacists, and I know you're from Texas, you're probably familiar, you know, oftentimes we think about somebody driving in a truck with a Confederate flag in the back of it. But, you know, white supremacists, they sit in the corporate boardrooms and they sit in government offices and they're crafting policies against our communities. So, you know, we want to see a president who will call out Islamophobia, xenophobia, racism for what it is. So I'd like to hear more from you. You know, what will you do to dismantle white supremacy? And what will you do to help bring policymakers from our community to help have policies that affect our community?
Yeah. Very happy to address that. Thank you for sharing all of that. It's really, really powerful.
So we'll see how much time
Yeah.
we have left to answer
Cynthia,
any
will
questions.
you give us some time to do that?
But-
Yeah, I think she's gonna wrap it
Yeah.
up so that you can.
Yeah, but
Yes.
what's our,
We're at
what's
it
our
right
time
now,
frame?
but
Okay,
we'll give it
okay. Give us an idea, just
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay. Does that work for everybody? Do you all have 10 minutes? And we'll
Yes.
presume you have the time as well.
Yeah, so just
Stephanie,
to
thank you.
kind of try to summarize everything, I think it's important important for us that the next president not only repeal and change all of the policies that have occurred under this administration, like Benyat said, to repair the lasting damage, right? The trauma and devastation in communities like Morristown and also communities across the country. We need to do a lot to make people feel whole and love this country again. As Sabina shared, the climate that allowed for this rise is not going to go away. So outside of the policies, we really feel like the next president, from the White House to communities across Tennessee, needs to help this country transition into a more multicultural democracy where everyone can belong and everyone can thrive. Again, using their executive authority as much as we can do with Congress, and certainly the moral authority of the president. Thank you.
So the short response to everything that I just heard is what Stephanie just said. So agree with everything that you just laid out, and hope to exemplify and embody that as President of the United States. I do want to make sure that I respect the questions that were asked, the specific questions, and give you specific answers. Veronica, you were talking about HB 2315. Before that, we also heard, or after that from Lisa, 287G. What are we going to do about this kind of legislation? We're going to overturn it and end it, because we're going to make the case to the American public that in addition to being anti-immigrant and putting your lives in jeopardy, causing people to live and work and raise their families in fear, it actually makes us less safe, not more safe. When I listen to the police chief and the sheriff in El Paso, Texas, law enforcement leaders, they say that programs like 287G make it less likely that immigrants are going to come forward and report crimes, testify in trials, serve as a witness. In other words, they're not going to contribute to our safety, and we functionally become less safe as a result. We had a woman who was being abused in her home, undocumented immigrant in El Paso, went to a judge in my community to ask for a protective order, was granted that order, but as she was leaving the courtroom, 2 plainclothes Border Patrol agents escorted her into custody. Fewer women, fewer people now coming forward to report these kind of crimes. So really glad that you asked that question. Jasmine, you asked about both DACA beneficiaries and those who have temporary protective status, TPS beneficiaries. President Trump, as we know, has threatened to end both of those programs. 2 things. 1, protect both programs and the more than 1 million DACA beneficiaries and the hundreds of thousands of TPS holders. Make their ability to become U.S. citizens as easy as humanly possible. Again, we'll make the case to the American public. Great for the TPS and DACA beneficiary, wonderful for the country at large. Measure it economically, in safety, in strength, or just who we are as a nation of immigrants. It's the right thing to do, and I would also expand those programs. So I would say everyone from Venezuela, for example, who is here in this country should be afforded TPS so that they don't have to go back to a place where you have extrajudicial killings, you have a humanitarian crisis. Let's protect them here in the wealthiest, the most powerful country on the face of the planet. Dulce, you to me made the case on making sure that we extend in-state tuition and make higher education as easy as possible for all Americans, including those who are dreamers or DACA holders. And so that's a specific policy that I want to make sure that we implement. You asked really good questions, or made a really good case around 1325 and 1326. And let me just tell you, I agree with you that at a minimum, they should be rewritten so that no one is criminally prosecuted for doing what any human would do in the same situation. So those seeking refuge or shelter or safety or asylum in this country, not criminally prosecuted. Families not detained or separated. We would institute a family case management program, which at a fraction of the cost and improved outcomes in terms of asylum applicants following our laws is going to be far more successful than what we have in place. I think we reserve criminal prosecution for exceptional cases where you have apprehended somebody not fleeing for their lives, not seeking asylum or safety or fleeing crushing poverty, but a known smuggler, a known trafficker, to make sure that we're using every tool at our disposal to make sure that we keep our communities and our country safe. You mentioned ICE raids. We know that this president has used them mercilessly to instill fear. We also have to admit that Democratic presidents have used ICE raids mercilessly, and whatever the motivation, it instilled fear and broke up families. So we will end the practice of internal enforcement against people who have committed no crime against the United States, pose no threat or risk to us, and in fact, Marta and Alberto, as you just showed us, are working the toughest jobs imaginable so that this country can be successful. I want to reward that work and that dedication, that sacrifice on your part, and not punish it. And I want to make sure that as Democrats, we get off the back foot, stop being defensive, either about border security, walls, or internal enforcement, and do the right thing. A couple of last points that I want to make sure that I hit. Layla, I want to make sure that we increase the number of refugees that are welcomed into the United States. Again, we make the case, it's good for the refugee and their family. It's wonderful for this country, and everything that those refugees, as they become American citizens, will reveal to our betterment. Their genius, the kids they'll raise, the jobs they'll work, the businesses like this one that they'll start, we stand to benefit from it. And then I love your story because it also talks about our moral debt to those who helped the United States, in your family's case, in Iraq. That debt should be paid immediately without question. And we should make sure that you and others who at great risk to their own lives have assisted us in our foreign policy are taken care of and are welcomed and are not made to fear coming to the United States. And then lastly, Sabina, there was this moment very early in the Trump administration where we were in El Paso and we were at an elementary school and we were in a third grade classroom, and this girl who is 9 years old, Mexican American, asks me why the president doesn't like her. And that really struck me as a father of little kids. And I told that story a couple weeks later to Houston, and a family pulled me aside and they said it really resonates with us because our daughter's also in third grade. We're Muslim, and she came home from school wondering if we should go back to another country. Never mind that she was born in this country, we were born in this country, it's our country just as much as it is anyone else's. She does not think that she belongs. What that does to that child's head, her conception of herself, her worth, her ability to contribute and be successful in this country, I can only imagine. And so I just want to acknowledge we're doing lasting, devastating damage to children, to people in the United States of America, when we conflate Representative Ilhan Omar with terrorists who attacked this country on 9/11. We are giving the President of the United States who did that, is giving permission not just for open hatred, but violence. And we've seen hate crimes on the rise every single one of the last 3 years. We can count on that continuing unless we change course. And so I will acknowledge, here we are in Nashville. I know this from my home state of Texas, those places that formed the Confederacy, that this country was founded on white supremacy. And every single institution and structure that we have in our country still reflects the legacy of slavery and segregation and Jim Crow, and suppression, even in our democracy, the ability to vote and participate in our elections, the voter rolls that are purged, the voter ID laws that keep people out of being able to choose their elected leaders. I just want you to know that I recognize that all of that is taking place, that it must be confronted in every aspect of American life. And one of the best counters to that is celebrating the fact that we are truly a people of the planet. And that is the source and foundation of our strength and our success. And we neglect that or imperil that at our own defeat. We celebrate that and use that as an example for what we do going forward to our lasting benefit and strength. And so you've got my commitment to do that rhetorically in what I say out on the trail, and then administratively in the executive actions that we take as president, in the laws that we seek to pass with members of Congress to make the most of who we are. So just want to say thank you to each of you for a really powerful, very helpful conversation. My job is to reflect back what you have shared with me out on the trail and bring more of our fellow Americans in to make sure that we achieve what we know this country is capable of doing. So, Stephanie, thank you for facilitating
Well, we've
this.
got some things for your campaign trail. So you
Yes, what do we have?
Tennessee. So, like you said, immigration happens, people move all the time. So when we're in tough conversations with people, we just like to remind them, people move.
I love it. Thank you.
And then during this campaign season, of course, we want to remind everyone that immigrants also vote.
I saw Lisa wearing that. I was like, where do I get one of those t-shirts? Thank you.
So